Okay, welcome to Neighbours Studio.
Thanks for having me.
First, I guess I'm going to say introduce yourself, but you are my sister. So, but the people watching and listening, introduce yourself, kind of what you do, and just a little background on yourself.
Yeah, my name is Jenna. I'm the owner of Body Positive Fitness, and I've been working in the fitness industry for over 20 years now. And my story is probably not as unique as you might think, but I don't think a lot of people are talking about it. And I was thinking on my way here, I've done a lot of interviews, but I've never been interviewed by you. And it's a very vulnerable story. So I feel a little bit vulnerable talking to you about it in this way.
Okay, well, that's fair. You can be as vulnerable as you want or not want. But let's start at like the very beginning. Like, I believe it starts like with the first job.
Yeah, I would say that it probably started there. I started working at a gym when I was like 13. A lot of people in our family did because we had an uncle that owned gyms growing up. And my first job ever was like a weekend, 3 hours at the desk, folding towels, and then cleaning mirrors and then selling memberships. And then I worked my way up to wanting to be a personal trainer and then becoming a personal trainer. So I've been surrounded by gym culture for a very, very long time.
Did you like it when you first?
I loved it.
You liked it.
I loved it. I was so inspired by the gym as a teenager. And I thought it was finally my answer to be skinny. I was never a skinny kid. You're an athlete. My brother is an athlete. My sister was kind of an athlete, which is strange to say now. She's not very athletic anymore, but she was a track star. But she was also naturally a skinny girl. And you were a thin boy. And I always strived to be that, and I wasn't. So I thought that this was my in. I'm working at a gym now. I have treadmills surrounding me. And now is my time to become the fittest version of myself. So that's when I started chasing the goal of having the body that I always wanted.
How old were you at that time?
Probably 13, 14, which would be grade 8, grade 9. I have a late birthday, so somewhere in there. So that would be 4 or 5 years before I was even old enough to be certified as a personal trainer.
Okay, so the journey begins now. It's now your opportunity, you feel in your head, to build the body that you strive for, I guess.
Yeah.
And what's the kind of the first steps of that?
Well, the first step was taking all of my uncle's Oxygen magazines and all the fitness content and cutting out bodies and putting them in my binder and using all of his lamination tools to laminate those bodies and just admire and design in my head who I wanted to be. And then uneducated, like most people are about bodies and fitness, like I thought it was stop eating and start running. So I was a cardio bunny to start. I was on the treadmill or the elliptical every time I finished my little 3-4 hour shift. And then it went from there. The gym actually had a contest that is built off a very famous program that I should probably not name. But the gym kind of mimicked this program. It was a 3-month program, and the gym was selling the program to the members, and they all got to join it. And then us as the staff, we did our own private one. And I hired a personal trainer, and I kicked the shit out of myself for 3 months, and I lost like 22 pounds or something at probably 15 years old at this point, and it was the most exciting thing in my life. I won like the pot of $300 for that competition, and that was the beginning of me always then trying to stay that small, if not smaller, better, leaner, more muscular. It never ends, like what you're chasing when you're in that mindset.
Was the excitement and, the best thing ever, was it because of how you looked at the end of it, or was it because you had set a goal and you worked and you actually achieved it This is a
Yeah.
while back and you were a kid at the time, but so it might be a difficult question to answer. But what do you think? Was it for how you looked in the mirror, or was it because you set out a goal and you did the steps and you achieved it?
I think it was for what I looked like in the mirror. I think it was pure vanity. The validation that I got from people was a part of it for sure. Like a lot of like, congratulations, I can't believe you did that. You look so good. I actually still have the laminated before and after pictures from that. I don't look that different at all. And now that I look at it, I'm like, that's a child's body. And here I am in a string bikini taking a before and after picture. And full grown adults are telling me that I look better. And thinking back now, I don't blame them. They're also in the fitness industry, right? Like everybody's brainwashed by it. But for me, it was 100% vanity. Like I can remember being in class and like feeling my tricep and being like, that's cool. Yeah.
Okay. But now you got a taste of it. And I guess you don't want to lose the feeling now.
Yeah. And for anyone who's ever chased weight loss, especially for a body that now I know and understand is just naturally a bigger body, it is not easy to get there and it is not easy to keep it. And to do it, you've got to make yourself sick. So let's say I was 15 when that happened. I chased that for 10 more years. And I went to every extreme that you could imagine. I ended up having a full-blown eating disorder, exercise disorder. I was exercising for hours a day. I took every supplement that anybody that was bigger in the industry told me that I should take. Didn't matter what was in it, didn't ask. And I chased unrealistic body goals for a decade.
Yeah, like that first chapter of the 15 run, like I'm unaware of that experience for you. I was, 12 at the time maybe. But you do move to Toronto. You continue in the fitness space. You become a personal trainer. You live down there and you're working in the industry. Talk about the move to Toronto and kind of the evolution of your career in the industry.
Yeah, I got certified as a personal trainer as soon as I could at 18. I worked in town here in Newmarket for a year. And then at 19, I moved to Toronto. I went to the financial district. I worked at a big box gym right in the middle of the financial district. So I also worked with a lot of wealthy people. And I sold unrealistic body goals for a lot of money for many years, but felt a huge pressure to always look a certain way because I thought that would make me a better personal trainer. I had my own trainer that I trained with 5 days a week for years. I did the whole thing. I did the tanning bed. I did the hair extensions, the fake eyelashes, working out every day, taking the supplements, measuring my food, doing fasted cardio. And I was number one in a really big gym. I feel like I could probably name it. It was Extreme Fitness because they don't exist anymore. I was the number one salesperson on their roster of trainers amongst many gyms for a long time because I was so good at what I did. Now, to this day, I can look back and say that the reason I was a number one salesperson was not because I was skinny. It was because I was just a nice, genuine person. And I cared about what I did. I was just really messed up about what it all meant.
And obviously you evolved past that, but the one piece that I'm referring to, like when you did that photo shoot, was that like the most extreme one? You were like,
I trained
so
skinny.
Yeah.
I trained really hard for a photo shoot. It was my goal. I had some idols at the time to be on Oxygen magazine. And I also wanted to be like the youngest person who ever got on the cover of Oxygen magazine. That was one of my goals. That's a fitness magazine for anyone who maybe doesn't know, a really big one. So I trained extremely hard to do a photo shoot so that I could get used to being in front of the camera and see what my body looked like when it literally had airbrush on it, and tanning and all of that. And then I did that photo shoot. And when I got the pictures back, I brought them to somebody who worked in that industry. And he said, you need breast implants because I was so skinny. I had no breast tissue. And so then I was like, okay, I'm not ready yet. And I went and I got breast implants.
Wow. So comment from someone in that industry pretty much led you to thinking that your next step is you're stopped here until you get breast implants.
Yeah, but I made that happen very quickly as well, as
Yeah.
I do. I remember sitting down and like looking at all of my idols, all of the people who were on the magazines, all of the people who competed in these competitions. And I was like, yep, they do. They all have boobs. They all have breast implants. I'm trying to think what year that would have been. Oh God, a long time ago. Breast implants were huge though at the time. Like everybody had them, no pun intended. I went to the surgeon. I think I was 21, 22. And I did not have a dime. And I was approved to get breast implants somehow. They were $23,000.
What, they give you a payment plan?
Yeah, payment plan. By the time I paid them off, they were out.
What's the getting them and getting them out? Well, actually, that's probably jumping a lot. Okay, so we'll call this chapter kind of peak industry as it is at that moment in time, you know. What do you think of the industry at that time?
I'm obsessed with it. It's all I know. And
You're good at it.
I'm good at it. I love working out. I'm strong. I surprise myself all the time. I love training people. I was so energized by training people. I worked really hard. I spent all of the money I made literally on rent, the small amount of food that I ate, and then my own services, my own personal training and my own beauty services, and then trying to pay for these implants. It's a big size, like another story, but I got sick from the implants. So ever since I got them in, I had to heal. So I wasn't really working out, which drove me nuts. And then I never lived another day without an injury after that. So that's a whole other line if you want to.
Let's dive into it. Right? Let's dive into that piece right now. Then we'll come back and then we'll go into the evolution.
So I took time off to heal from the implants. And then as soon as I had the go ahead to start again slowly, obviously I wasn't going back to what I was doing. Running felt horrible. Running never felt good ever again. You literally have bags of silicone sitting on your chest. So that doesn't feel good. Chest pain, neck tightness, back tightness, always had a thrown out back. I could like not deadlift or squat without having to go to the chiropractor, having to do this, that. I was always fighting something within my body. And I just like chalked it up to like, I'm not strong enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not doing it properly. Like, why was I always hurt, you know? And then like fast forward, like this goes on now for years and I'm always fighting it. I had a knee injury that the doctors told me I was getting arthritis. I saw an arthritis specialist. I had a cortisone shot in my knee. I wore a knee brace for about a year. And during this time, I'm obviously gaining weight because I can't fight it the way I want to fight it. And then I started reading about breast implant illness, and I checked every box of that. Lucky for me, I had a ruptured implant, so OHIP covered taking them out. But if I was experiencing all of these things but didn't have a broken implant, I would have had to pay about $10,000 to get them out of my body. And even with OHIP covering them because it was broken and it had to come out of my body, the surgeon still tried to tell me that I had to replace them for OHIP to cover it. And I had to fight that. I was like, that's not what I was told. And then he went away and talked to a few people, came back, said begrudgingly, okay, we'll do it. We'll just take them out. So that was a blessing in disguise because I wouldn't have been able to afford taking them out. What's
the time period of this?
I had them for 7 years, about 7 years.
Then removed and body...
I literally I went into the surgery wearing a knee brace. And I don't believe shit unless science tells me that it's true. So I was a little skeptical. I knew that I was checking all these boxes for this breast implant illness, but I was still like, really? Could like they be causing all of this shit? And I woke up from surgery, walked back to the hotel room that I was staying at because they do the surgeries at the hotel. which in Toronto. And obviously it was high, but sobered up. And I was like, oh, my knee feels fine. And my knee has never hurt again, ever since then. That was 2018. So that's almost 7 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go kind of the birth of body positive fitness. When did the seed of an idea start to come? When did you start to think about it? What was the change in your view of it, of the industry that you're in and how you thought about it? Because, you know, it is a pretty drastic change, but I'm sure it wasn't all at once. So kind of walk me through what the steps were, you know, starting from the seed of the idea.
It's like my favorite story. So I met my husband in 2015 and fell in love, and he loved me. And when I met him, I was like, still had my breast implants, had the knee injury, had gained some weight, but not as much as I have now. I had black hair and wore makeup and tried really hard to look a certain way. And he immediately made me feel like what it felt like to actually be loved by somebody, and like none of that mattered. And that's not something that I can explain unless you've experienced it yourself. It just didn't matter. So I already had that like huge unspoken support. And I'm going through this like identity crisis with my knee and not looking the way I want to look, but still trying to look a certain way, blah, blah, blah. I was 26 at the time. And I was sick of the gym. I was sick of the industry that I worked in. I knew that I wanted to change. And I just came across people on Instagram that were speaking similar stories. So they weren't necessarily personal trainers or people that had been in the industry, but they had been fighting an eating disorder their whole life. And now they're recovering from it and they're speaking about it. And this is when Instagram kind of like was starting to boom. And so I was reading these stories and a lot of them resonated with me. And there was a body positive movement that was brand new at the time. And so as I'm exploring other people's stories, it literally was like, do I have an eating disorder? Do I have an exercise disorder? Is what I've been doing my whole adult life fucked up? Like, why am I doing this? You know? And like, why do I have breast implants? And why do I care? Like, what about my eyelashes and this and that, blah, blah, blah. It was just like this identity crisis. And so then like books came out, Health at Every Size and Anti-Diet. And one of the girls I followed, Body Posy Panda, she was like the OG in the movement. I read her book. And I literally feel like, if you ever watched a cult documentary, I literally feel like I like came outside of the cult. And now I'm looking at it from the outside and I'm like, this is fucked up. I've been doing this since I was 13. Like, what is going on? And I started to just learn about the body and how it actually works. Not learning about the body from an industry that is going to make billions of dollars telling you that you have to change it. And that coinciding with meeting the love of my life and him being an incredible chef and him being also a fat guy, I was like the two worlds just went together. I stopped caring about what other people thought of me because it didn't matter anymore. I started eating incredible food. I stopped dieting. I was learning about how dieting actually harms your body, and like it just goes on and on and on. So I was sick of the place that I was working in at the time, and I thought, I'm going to take fitness outside of the gym. And I'm going to run classes called Body Positive Movement classes, short form BOPO Move, that we still have on our schedule. I messaged you. I said, I could run these at Artscape Young Place. Do you remember that? And I was like, I'm going to run these classes. This is how much it costs for me to rent out the room. I'm going to get 15 people in there. We don't have weights. We don't have bands. We probably didn't even have yoga mats to start. It's just going to be moving our bodies without that toxic fitness culture surrounding us and staring at us and telling us that we need to lose weight and telling us we need this pill and this diet and this potion. So anyway, I advertised it for like a couple months. And then I sold out my first class and my second class and my third class. And I got like 8 classes under my belt, and then I had to get my breast implants out. So that was happening at the same time as well, that I was going through the process with the doctors and the surgeons that this surgery was going to happen. And I had just started the body positive movement classes. And those clients that came for those first 8 classes are still clients today. That was in 2017. And they waited for me to come back from surgery. I was off, I think like 6 weeks or something. I came home to recover. And when I came back, they were all there. And then it just kept going from there. I just kept building on it.
During your recovery, did it feel like the new chapter has officially begun?
Yeah.
You know, breast plants are removed. You kind of started this, you know, movement type thing. And now you're recovering and, you know, you got your first customers, clients waiting for you to, you know, kind of pick this up.
Yeah, it was amazing. And now looking back, I'm like, oh, they only really knew me for like a few weeks, right? But we were already so bonded, and I documented all of it on Instagram, the whole process of, I think I even shared pictures of the implants when they came out. And so it really was like a new piece of like, okay, now I'm literally just myself again. These bags are removed from me. I feel good. And yeah, it all really came together. And then I came back to Toronto and just kept building that community.
And are you personal training at the same time and building the community?
Oh, yeah.
And it's just kind of, you know, you're one foot in the one world. I'm sure that's kind of your tone and how you looked at it was changing too. But then you're kind of building this community on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And did you think to yourself, oh, I'm going to make the jump over and do this fully kind of on my own? Or was that a couple years later? When was the I'm jumping with both feet in moment?
It was a little bit more complicated than that because I worked at a gym that I had worked at for 10 years. And although I was a contractor, I was treated like an employee in the sense that they tried to withhold like what I was allowed to do elsewhere. And they were still, no, you know what? There was like beef at that gym because I wasn't getting clients anymore. I had a whole bunch of clients that I had for about 10 years, and they still trained with me regardless of how much weight I gained because they loved me as a trainer. But all the new, young, hot girls were coming in and being the new personal trainers. And it's so funny because like I was only like 26, 27, 28. I was young. But I wasn't getting clients anymore. And I was like, you know what? If you're not going to give me clients, I'm going to bring in my own clients. But my clients aren't going to pay you. They're going to pay me. I'll pay you. So I'll pay rent. So we kind of switched the model that I was working under at that gym where people bought my services as body positive fitness and I paid out the time that I spent in this space. And there was a lot of blurred lines and like anger towards me, I think, from the fitness industry, from that gym specifically. The owner publicly said I should enjoy my 15 minutes of fame. And then that just pushed me to keep enjoying my fame. Because at the time, like, I was out there. The news channels were getting me. I was on multiple radio stations, on TV, talking about what I was doing to combat the fitness industry. And I don't think that the fitness industry liked that. But I was still working in the fitness industry.
And when's call it the full break off from that?
2 days ago?
Maybe, but really, when do you come to Newmarket?
So I'm running a handful of classes in Toronto all over the place. Some were at the gym that I worked at. Some were in theater spaces. Some were in libraries.
Wherever you could get space.
Wherever I could rent space. Then I came up to Newmarket and I started renting from a space on Main Street just 3 times a week for 3 classes here. And then I opened my own studio on Davis Drive in Newmarket. That was my clients know the timeline better than I do. I think 2019, we just talked about it. 2019, maybe 2018, because then the pandemic is what shut down my studio, my first studio in Newmarket. At that time, I was still renting from a gym that I had worked at for a long time, but I was running everything fully, completely through my own company, Body Positive Fitness.
Yeah, really the gym at that time is just a space
rental.
to rent.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Like, so
Yeah.
I would say that moment you're kind of broken free
Like-
from it. I know that you're using the space, but
Yeah.
almost kind of mentally and, business models style too, right? You're now building out your business now at this time. Like, that's what the priority is.
Yeah. Like, I would definitely say that, like, Body Positive Fitness was built in 2017. And then it totally changed in 2020.
Yeah. So 2017, and like all good businesses, you're just kind of brick by brick, going from, call it week to week, month to month, more classes, more spaces, more members coming in, more clients. Then you come into Newmarket. Now you have your own studio too. So now you're running Newmarket Studio and having spaces in Toronto as well too. Business is kind of growing. And then this little pandemic comes by in 2020 and flips everything on its head.
Yeah. Flips everything on its head. And it was incredibly scary for the fitness industry because fitness was like one of those main spaces that was like germs. They're not opening. For us, it was a massive blessing in disguise because we went virtual. And before the pandemic, I had like 2 clients who I trained virtually because they just found me on Instagram and they weren't local. And I worked with them in the time that I did have to do that. And then when we went, okay, now all of our classes are online, and actually even more than that because we don't have to rent any spaces, people kind of just flooded in. Like worldwide. We had like our very first Zoom class, I think had like 40 people. One, yes, everybody was at home bored out of their minds. It only took us about 2 weeks, I think, to turn it like into a full thing. But having that virtual studio changed the game because the whole model from the beginning behind Body Positive Fitness was you don't need to be in a gym to do this. And you don't need to be surrounded by gym culture and gym bros and this toxic world to do this. So now it's like, okay, now you really don't even have to leave your house and we're going to work you out.
Yeah, it's definitely a blessing in disguise, having to pivot like that. But then you built up this whole other part of your business that kind of wouldn't have been thought of or would have been second thought of it. Now it's kind of priority of it.
Yeah.
So I guess then you could call it a 2-year run of continuing to build on the online classes, virtual classes. And, from the outside looking in, I feel like the business kind of step changed big time at that.
Yeah, no, it did. And I think a big difference was that a lot of fitness centers, gyms, whatever you want to call it, personal trainers, they saw it as a Band-Aid. And they were just waiting to get back in the gym because that's where they wanted to be. And every time we had those little hiccups where gyms opened for like a couple months, those businesses went back to the gym. And we were like, nope, like this is our thing now. Like we weren't even thinking about when we were going to be back in the gym. This is what we were doing. So all of our eggs went into that basket. And it wasn't just the classes, like virtual personal training was a huge one as well.
Yeah. And also with that focus kind of going virtually, right? I think a sense of community building starts to grow there of like, when you're building a business, you're building out the brand of this, but what you're doing is building a true community of individuals that believe in this, believe in you, believe in the mission of this too. And I know that you did much more than just call it the movement classes. You added a bunch of classes, like different style of classes too, but then as well, kind of community focus, whether it was a book club or just general like meets virtually too. So speak about that.
Yeah. And to go back to like when I first started it and I got the breast implants out, how I say like, we were already so close. When you are building such authentic connections, which the fitness industry is not authentic, but moving our bodies is like a very raw thing and it can be a very vulnerable space. People really connect when you give them the space to do that. And I think that's why everybody was so connected right at the beginning. They had this like common ground where there was no shame right? And they could just be themselves. And like there are people from that very first class that are still best friends today, and I'm not even a part of their lives at all. And just the friendships that have been created in this space. I use the language community over clients a lot because it really is like, you don't have to be paying me to be a part of this. You don't have to be doing any services with us to be a part of this community. And the community is massive. I would say like you take the community and then maybe 50, 60% are paying for something, but the rest are just there, and that's totally fine. We did book clubs, games nights. We did an open mic night. We've done a lot. We actually started it's called Bopo Social. We started that arm right before the pandemic. We had our first like games night in Toronto at like one of those like snakes and lattes places. And it was like right when people were starting to hear about the pandemic, and then that got closed down right away. So we took it online. And again, people were searching for that connection, especially during the pandemic, but it just really opened my eyes up. Like, I'm a very privileged person. I have a great family. I have friends. I'm physically able. I can go out. I have a car. I can afford to go on transit or take an Uber or go downtown or go on vacation. There are a lot of people who live very isolated lives for many reasons. And this opened up something for them to do and people for them to connect with from all over the world. And just generally, it is a safe space. So people aren't scared to join us for fitness or book club.
Love it. And so then, in that period of time, you really get kind of clear on who you are, what you're trying to accomplish with your business, with the community, and all the different ways you can kind of serve the community too. And then another phase happens where you're going to get back into in real life kind of events too, right? Pandemic has ended. And so now what's that phase look like? Coming out of the pandemic, I think you're really clear on who you are and what you're trying to do. Like, what's the thought process through that?
Yeah, I'm just going to go back again because this is an important part of the story. And one of my favorite parts that I forgot about. When I first came up with the idea of body positive fitness, I was at work on King Street, downtown Toronto. And I called my boyfriend at the time. And I said, you need to meet me on Queen Street. I need to tell you about an idea that I have. And so if for anyone listening to this, and if you don't know what MEC is, Mountain Equipment Co-op, there's one downtown. There used to be one downtown on King Street. And it's this massive building. It's 2 stories. It's all open. It's beautiful. And that was my vision. I said, this is body positive fitness, but it's multiple services and avenues. There's a coffee shop here. There's a massage room. There's a game center. There's a gym. There's a nutritionist. There's all these different things to do in a like-minded community that is safe, body positive, anti-diet, health at every size mentality. So you could go there to explore. And at the time, my husband and I we were writing down like all of the different types of things that could be within that space. Now, to rent a place as big as MEC downtown Toronto, you better have a lot of money, which I did not have. So when we went virtual, I was like, wow, there's like now this virtual space that we can do this. And we don't need to rent the space for it. So being able to build it out on the web the way that we did was very cool. And now coming back to in-person stuff, I don't even remember what you just asked me, but I opened another studio in Aurora here, and I'm working on opening one in Toronto. And I'm just now bringing on what I'm calling community ambassadors so that they can help me run the in-person events, because I can't go to every games night and coffee shop and this and that. But I want these people to be able to connect with each other without me being a part of it. So all of that is in the works right now.
It's one of my favorite things. I call this world building.
World building.
You're building the world as you see.
Yeah.
You have a vision for this type of world too, and others get to come in and participate in this world too, yeah. Like-minded individuals too. And I think it's a special thing. Like I even have some goosebumps too. A special thing when you can kind of nail that in for yourself as an individual too, because it's something that you can work on for your whole life.
Yeah.
Right. Business can ebb and flow. It can grow. You can change it too, and you can. You could also be responsible for that too, but you can continuously world build around that vision of it too. So here we are in 2024. It's been quite the journey to get to this point. I feel like you're in rhythm now. Mm-hmm. What's your, kind of overall thoughts and feelings of where you're at in the world and what you're building? And
yeah. I want to mention that if for somebody who's listening to this, if you live a life where you are what we call straight size, which means you can go to any store in the mall and you can buy yourself a pair of pants. And you're not disabled, and you don't struggle with mental health, and you don't struggle with eating disorders or exercise disorders, or you're not an aging individual. If you are living a very privileged life, you might not understand why there is such a great need for spaces like this. Not just fitness. Like I'm talking, go to the coffee shop, meet a friend for coffee. In the world that I'm trying to build, if Body Positive Fitness or BOPO Social is hosting a coffee meetup, that place is wheelchair accessible. There's no stairs. You can get in there if you can't walk. When you get in there, there are chairs that don't have arms on them. So that if you are in a big body, you don't have to worry about squeezing into a chair. There are things like this that people don't think of if they're not experiencing life that way. And there are a lot of people in the world that experience life at a disadvantage. So in building out these spaces where someone doesn't need to think twice about the bowling alley or the games night, and in trying to build these events, it's hard to find to make things accessible. And it's my mission to make as many spaces accessible as I can to all people. So when people come to my classes, I have a 94-year-old in my class right now who comes in. She had her oxygen tank with her the other day. I bring out the comfiest chair that I have. She sits right in the middle of the class and she does the thing with everybody else. And I cater it so that it works for her. If I had somebody come to my fitness class that didn't have a leg, they would not for a second feel like they were out of place and doing something different. So it is my goal to make fitness is my realm, and I am making fitness accessible in lots of ways, but I want to create accessibility as much as I can for these people. I don't remember what your question was. Was it my goal, my long-term goal?
No, I was like sitting in 2024 now, like you have this journey that's behind you that has led up to this point too, and just kind of your overall feeling and vision of life and what you're building, the community of it too. Just that was an answer.
Yeah. So my goal, fitness related, is to keep opening studios and keep growing the online community and our offerings online as well. I would love to be as big as some of the brand name gyms that you think of, but I wonder if it's possible to keep the same care for our clients and authenticity if it gets that big. But of course, that would be a goal. This past year of life in my business has also been the first year of my daughter's life. And what I've been able to do in this past year makes me really excited for what I could do in the next 5 years, given that I've done it during what is supposed to be a very difficult time in your life. So I'm very excited to just keep working at everything I'm doing, and I have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, wonderful.